Let me tell you about One Day as a Lion.
While the rest of his bandmates had already been carving out a 3-album run without him in Audio Slave, frontman and rap king Zack De La Rocha set out most of the 2000s, along with the whole Bush administration, oddly enough. His silence was broken in 2008, though, when he came together with Mars Volta's own and an immensely underrated and talented drummer, John Theodore. The two started a group that, unlike his 90s excursions, sadly slipped away into obscurity before it ever got the chance to shine bright, even if there were long-standing rumors that this outfit wasn't quite done yet. The project kept the political edge Zack was known for, but shaped those roots into something different thanks to its intimate setup. The group in question is One Day as a Lion, and the release this video is talking about is their sole output. I'm talking about the 2008 self-titled EP,
Well, I don't have my original copy of this EP anymore because it was one of the many things I sold when I left the East Coast to move to Indiana. How I came across this EP and this group as a whole is that sort of wild magic that I love to see in the world sometimes. It was end of my sophomore year of high school. I'm walking the halls of a Walmart, as you do, and in the music section, they had this EP for $5. I bought it because the cover was pretty bright and vibrant. And plus, it was only $5 and I was craving new music, so I figured, why not take a gamble? I opened the liner notes and see the words De La Rocha and went, holy shit, that I just discovered something Rage Against the Machine related, because obviously, as a sophomore in high school, I'm really fucking into Rage Against the Machine at the time. And when putting the CD in my CD player at home, I couldn't have been happier with my purchase, because this EP gave me everything that I was wanting out of like something new involving Rage Against the Machine. And not to say that Audio Slave is bad. I really like Audio Slave. The first couple of records especially have a lot of really good jams. But as far as that fiery, very politically charged, with a decent amount of noise buried beneath that, wasn't something that Audio Slave gave me. And this definitely scratched that itch, but in a way that only like went partially there, because while this is an incredible 5 tracks, it is the best example of a proof of concept already being fully realized by having that same lyrical sharpness. I mean, the first lyrics on this, on In War, Truth is the First Casualty, which is like a bold as fuck claim, but also like very true. And like weaponized speeches and like using words in politics is very much like in vogue to discuss now, especially. Still felt really true at the time. A lot of that track does a good job at turning that weaponized politics into the real subject of the song, which is how far beliefs can go as far as like causing war, because the whole song is about like weaponized Christianity as the song kind of goes along, and how the sort of spread of that and the word led to these huge large-scale wars, you know what I mean? While this is a very intimate setup, noise I was craving doesn't feel lost. A lot of the keyboard sounds on here and John Theodore's thunderous drumming fill out the space very, very well. You know, they get really thunderous and booming on Ocean View, which is personally my favorite song of the EP, and I think does a good job at taking all of that grand imagery of war in a large scale and focalizes it more into the streets. Allusions of the church that really permeate throughout a lot of this. It really feels like Zack had a lot on his mind involving the evolution of the church in war, and I think that all of those are kind of expressed really well across the evolution of this EP. But I like that throughout that he also talks about just the general tension in the streets, using these really good sort of picturesque lyrics to set a stage, cement the listener in that war in many facets sort of mentality that he typically channeled really well on Rage, but just sort of updated a lot of that for the ages in a way that I think is quality as fuck. I've been a big advocate for Zack as an artist as a whole, dissected from Rage. I think that he's easily one of my favorite rappers, and he has been for such a long time, and every time he crops up, I'm always excited to see what he's got to say, and this EP is absolutely not an exception to that rule. One of the things that does evolve on this EP is his hook writing. Yeah, there were hooks on Rage Against the Machine albums, but tracks like Ocean View and If You Fear Dying and One Day as a Lion, the title track, all have a lot more melody play in a way that Rage kind of did, but I think because he's carrying a lot of the melody work with his cadences, I think that it sort of inspired him to do more hook spinning, and I think that it does a good job at keeping the listener invested and adding a little more catchiness amidst this very intimate setup.
With this sort of tonal pivot in the last two tracks of A View for Dying in the title tracks, Hooks having this sort of call to arms nature, it helps increase the sort of bombast amidst the intimacy that helps create this unity between group and listener. You know, the hook on If You For Dying of Time Is Coming, rise in like the dawn of the red sun, if you for dying then you're already dead. That line, if you for dying then you're already dead, is a great sort of sentiment to the militant style of Zach's writing that hooks like this help enhance tenfold.
I also think that one of the things that this does that retroactively made me pay more attention to Rage in hindsight is the drum work. You know, I liked the Mars Volta going into this project, but after spinning this is when I got even more into the group, because John Theodore's drumming on here is fantastic. And it made me appreciate Brad Wilk's drumming even more, because I always liked Rage, and I thought Brad was a really good foundation for the rhythm, but seeing the intricacy that John kind of spins and pockets on here, like during tracks like Last Letter, is a choice moment that I think creates this interesting groove for those synths to sort of cut into, and Zach's flow honestly takes a backbeat to let that rhythm shine in a choice way. I don't know, man, I really enjoyed this EP, and it's unfortunate that it didn't really go anywhere. As the years have gone on post its release, both John and Zach, and also people around them like Tim Comerford of Rage, have talked about how Zach has kind of been working with One Day As a Lion full record for the longest time, but those rumors kind of fizzled out, I want to say a good like solid 6 years ago. And with sort of Rage's continuing resurgence in popularity, I feel like that One Day As a Lion is just slowly going to continue to dissolve into the background.
Which is honestly a fucking travesty, because while looking up live sets to put as the background for this, there are a handful of songs that they've never laid to record that they would play live, and I knew that they added other members to the band. They were really trying for a minute to let this project take off. It just didn't really go anywhere, whether it was because it didn't sell that well or their already independent label just didn't see a future in them. I don't know. But I feel like between the two of them's talents, they could have easily made something really fucking choice with this prospect.
But I wanted to give it a pedestal on the channel today because as far as like random finds in the wild that evolved into personal favorites of mine, One Day As a Lion is like one of the earliest and ones that I'm most proud of, given it was just the most wild of happenstances to come together. I think that a lot of the lyrics on here, like on a handful of Raid projects, have that same deep reference game and prominent importance in weaponized politics that I think is still important to have a platform for. I think Zach does a good job at putting his perspective on how, especially again, the rise in Christianity throughout culture has been not necessarily the best thing for certain cultures, and sort of how it's affected it pretty negatively. I think that his reference play on here does a good job at creating a lot of double and triple entendres within those references, and it further showcases why I think he's personally one of the best rappers still doing it. And if you haven't checked out this EP, because again, I feel like it's kind of a diamond in the rough, or at least a gem lost to time, I would highly suggest giving it a spin. It's only 5 tracks. It's a very short little project that had a lot of promise with its talents and its roster that, again, I think is just gonna stay gone forever, but stay sort of dormant forever, but who knows? The future's a crazy thing. Either way, this is all I really had to talk about. It's a nice little baby EP. If you liked it, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I drop 2 to 4 vids a week depending on what I've got going on. Thank you again so very much for watching. I'm Devour Rack. You guys will get these lives and situations, and I'll see you another day.